All right, well, good morning. My name is Justin Lanigan. I'm the Managing Director of LavaBox, and it's a great privilege to welcome you all to how to pull off a CRM project step by step. And I'd really like to thank you all for taking the time out of your incredibly busy schedules to join us for our session today. Now, in light of that, I do want to make two firm commitments to you. Now, the first is that I will not be trying to sell any particular kind of CRM software today, so it's a safe space. You know, take a deep breath and relax. I'll do that too. Now, the reality is LavaBox are CRM, Salesforce consulting specialists, but the information that I'm going to be providing today, I really want to make sure that it's valuable to you regardless of the tech that you choose to work with. And the second thing is I'm really going to try and keep the hype out of the session today. You know, when you look at the marketing for CRM software, it almost looks like you turn it on and your business transforms itself. It almost looks like, you know, your business systems just reach out to your CRM and automatically integrate. Your business processes automate themselves. But the reality is that CRM, when you commit to it and when you go through the process and you make it a core priority for your business, it can make a real and transformative impact to the way that you interact with your customers and to the way that you run your business. So I'll cover what we're going to run through during our session today. So over the next hour, we're going to be running through our presentation of how to pull off a CRM project step by step. And following that, we've then got a real treat for you. We have 3 of our LavaBox customers who have all implemented Salesforce and use CRM in really different ways, and they're all also very different kinds of organizations. So first of all, we have Adi from St. John, and Adi is he's really, I guess, heading up the digital transformation at St. John. And they use Salesforce in a marketing automation capacity, really designing their customer experience on the Salesforce platform. Then we have John Fitness, and John works from the Tick Co. And Tick are a really fascinating startup. They work in the anti-money laundering compliance space. And Tick has grown. I think we started working with Tick in February this year, and they had 5 staff, and they've grown up to about 35 staff over the past 5 or 6 months. So they're on a really rapid growth journey with us. And any fast-growing startups in the room who are really trying to scale up, I think John's going to provide some really fantastic insights from that perspective as well. And then we have Linda from Panasonic. So Panasonic has implemented Salesforce with us with 3 sales teams that operate really differently, selling Panasonic through channels throughout New Zealand. And they've also integrated their ERP and finance data with Salesforce. And I think they're also going to be great from any businesses, especially in the distribution space, who are bringing products into New Zealand and selling them through channels. So my hope is that as we go through the session today, if you have some burning questions that apply to your business, I'll certainly be asking the panel some really core questions that I hope will benefit you. But I'd also welcome you all to ask them any questions that are on your mind as well. And my hope is that their experiences will be relevant to you and they'll really help to give you some insights that will help you on your own journey with CRM. So before we kick things off, I'd just like to get a brief show of hands if I can. So can I just ask, who is considering implementing CRM, but they're not quite sure how to make it work in your business? So you're really looking for a clear way forward for CRM today. Nice, okay, great. And how many of you have already implemented CRM, but you're really, I guess, looking to drive more value out of that investment? Cool, I think we've got a really even split here. That's fantastic. Okay, great. Well, now that I've found out a bit more about you, I'd like to let you know a bit more about me as well. So I started out in business back in 2007 when I was 21 years old with my good friend and LavaBox co-founder, John McLean. And we had a plan, and the plan was that we were going to sell a ton of template-based websites. We were going to make recurring revenue from the web hosting, and we were going to retire to a beach location and sip margaritas for the rest of our days within 3 years. I have an update. I'm still here. I'm here with you guys. I'm not at the beach. But for 2 young guys in business, we didn't do too badly for our first crack at it. We ended up growing to 20 staff, and we sold over 2,000 websites to Kiwi SMEs. So it was a pretty good run. But this is the challenge that we faced, and I don't know if any of this resonates with you in your own journeys in business, but when we began, it was pretty easy. So John and I was selling the websites, John was delivering the websites and designing them, and it was all running along pretty simply. But when we started to add employees into the mix and we grew our revenue, what we found really quickly was that our customer experience, the way we delivering really dropped. We found leads were slipping through the cracks, customer conversations were getting lost in inboxes, there were miscommunications with our team between designers and developers, all the different players within the organization. And so our profit margin and our customer experience really dived. Now, when we talk about scaling up with confidence, what we did is when there was a team of only 4 of us, we paid what we thought was a pretty hefty license bill for a small team. And we decided to back Salesforce as our CRM platform. And what we did over the next 5 years is we designed all of our business processes and customer touch points and experience on a single integrated customer-centric platform. And what that meant was that we were able to really design the journey from lead to contract, that sales process. We were able to put our customer service on the platform for a single view of our clients. We built a custom project management application to design our end-to-end delivery process so that there were customers churning out that were happy at the end of their experience with us every time. So when we talk about scaling with confidence, what we mean is that it's a business's ability to rapidly increase their revenue, their profit margin, and their customer experience concurrently at the same time, yeah? Now, what I do want to point out is that the journey to doing that, I'm not going to stand up here and say that it's a fast journey. It's certainly not cheap. It's something that has to be a core priority that you invest in. And it's not going to be easy. You learn a lot about your business, about your processes, about your team through this journey as well. But what I can tell you is that if you go through this process and build that strong foundation that enables you to scale up with confidence, it makes a real and meaningful transformation to how you run your business and allows you to take each next step on your growth journey with a solid foundation. There's nothing else that I know of in business that's allowed us to do anything close to that. So when we started LavaBox 5 years ago, what we set out to do was to really help our clients do the same thing that we just did. So we have a team of 4 different aspects of the practice. One is our CRM Implementation Team. So this team is building out transformative implementations of Salesforce where we are translating our clients' business pain points and challenges into a technical solution to help them take that next step in their journey. We have a continuous improvement team that works alongside our clients post-deployment to help them translate the feedback from their users and customers and changes in their strategy into a solution that helps them to adapt quickly in their market. We have a marketing automation team that helps to design the customer touch points and communications that surround the customer at every step of their life cycle. And we also have set up a team called Deploy, which helps smaller companies to take their first steps into CRM economically and cost effectively and giving them a strong platform to grow on. So now I want to talk about our presentation and what we intend to cover over the next hour. The first thing is getting these 3 things right. This is what I know is required and to be true for really getting CRM working in your organization. The first thing is you need to back the right CRM platform. And that's all about selecting the right technology to really support your current strategic priorities, but also your future roadmap. And the second thing is you need to design the system to empower your team. This is the tool that your team are going to be logging into and using every day to do their job. So by putting the user at the heart of the design of the system, it's really what enables you to embed that system and that way of working into your organization. And the third thing is you need to commit to continuous improvement. So CRM is not just put it in and move on. It is a living, breathing reflection of the best way you could operate at that moment. So by doing those 3 things and by taking that journey, that is really where we see CRM delivering on its transformative potential. So let's talk about the first aspect of this. So this is how you back the right CRM platform. This is about making sure that you select the right technology to support your current and future needs. So we're going to talk about how to define your priorities. So this is all about where to focus for that successful and critical first project. Then we're going to talk about how to assemble your project team. And this is about making sure that you get the right mix of people within your organization involved in that project. We're then going to talk about how to evaluate and select the right CRM. And we're also going to talk about how to assess potential consulting partners in the space as well. Now, apologies, there is a lot up on this slide because there are a lot of different places that you can start this journey. You might begin your CRM journey with a focus on sales. So this is designing your sales process from first lead coming in through to sign contract, really making sure that you're automating the manual steps in that process to help your reps become more effective. You might begin with a focus on customer service, so getting your help desk out of email and having conversations lost in disparate inboxes, and bringing them into a defined case management environment, helping get the right service inquiries in the hands of the right people in your team based on their capacity and their skill set, or even helping your customers to serve themselves and deflect some of that service load as well. You could also begin with a focus on marketing automation or customer engagement. And this is a really interesting one because, again, this is about how to actually weave the business processes and the customer touch points together to really create a fantastic customer experience. And again, if you think about how can you influence your customers to do business with you, there's really only two tools that you have at your disposal. So one is the business processes, how your team are engaging with your customers. But the second is the content or the touch points that your customers are receiving, right? So there's really only those two tools. So by weaving them together, that can also be an incredibly powerful way of implementing CRM. You could look at account management. So how to transition your relationship management functions from reactive order taking to being far more strategic and proactive by tiering your accounts, driving call cycles, or leveraging sales data for next best actions for your team. You could look at integration as a core phase one priority, so connecting your other key business systems, bringing data into or pushing data out of your CRM into those systems. Or you might look at core business process automation. And at its core, CRM platforms are just a blank platform to build any kind of business process. So you might decide that you want to look at building applications for your finance team or your project management team, for example. But look, wherever you choose to start that journey, the main thing is you want to be selecting, though probably 1, 2, or maximum 3 of those areas that really are where most of your team or most of your customers are experiencing the most pain. And often they go together because if your team aren't getting it right, your customers are also not happy, right? So it's about looking at where do you focus for that core project. Once you've chosen where you want to focus, the next thing is to get the right mix of people involved. And this is probably, if there was one thing that was the most important piece of a successful project, it's the people within your business that you choose to put into this environment and into this project. So you've got your product owner. So this is the person who is ultimately accountable for seeing the CRM succeed within your business. So they're going to be a senior business leader. They're going to be responsible for making sure that your relationship with your consulting partner and the other members of your project team are on track, your budgets are on track, the business's requirements are being met through the project. You've then got your business user. And your business user is the specific user within your business that represents the perspective of the end users. So they're probably a manager of the team who are actually going to be using this system. They're going to be really good at identifying current challenges and pain points within the existing processes. You've then got your technical users, and in smaller organizations, you'll work with what you have, but you really need people there who can administer the system once it's live, so updating reports, dashboards, fields. And you also need to have people who are responsible for training your end users. You know, you have new people coming into the business. There needs to be people there who know how to help them hit the ground running as well. And then this is a really important one, your subject matter experts. Now, these are not people who are going to be members of your core project team, but what they are is they're people that have specialized knowledge. So for example, when you're doing your quoting piece of the system, do you bring in an expert from your finance team? When you've got a project management application, do you bring in some frontline project management expertise? Do you bring in an end user like a sales or service rep to sense check the design of the system and not trust that their manager's view of the world is the correct one? Because again, getting it right is about bringing a rounded view of perspectives into the project, right? So you want to make sure that you're not just coming at it from your business leadership's point of view or a manager or the frontline end user, because they all see the world differently, and the best designs always combine those views. So once you've got the right mix of people involved, the next thing to do is to document your requirements. And look, requirements for CRMs can be hundreds of pages long if you want them to be, but At the early stages, what I might point out is that when you're evaluating CRM, as you learn more about their capabilities and what they can do, what you think you need will probably evolve and change as well. So the initial goal is to really make sure that you can let potential consulting partners or CRM vendors know what you're after. So first of all, explaining what your business does. So your value proposition, your organizational structure, your target customer. You'll want to talk about your existing processes on a high level. You also want to talk about why now. What's actually driving you to look at this project now? I mean, I imagine there's a reason you're all sitting here. There's probably some burning pain points in your business that you're trying to solve. And so making sure that those are really clear and kept at the heart of what you need out of the solution is critical. Another really useful thing to get high-level requirements is a concept called user stories, right? So this means as a user, so like as a sales manager, I want to have one-on-ones with my team every week so that I can keep them on track to month end. Now, underneath that high-level requirement, there's a ton of data to be captured, there's reports to be built, there are processes to be, to be automated, there might be integrations to bring data in, there's a whole lot that might need to happen, but from an initial high-level perspective, that helps you get organized. And then also, what does success look like? And when we talk about success in a CRM context, I'm not just talking about it in terms of your company or your commercial success. It's what does success mean to your end users? What are they actually getting out of the system as they work in this day-to-day? How is it helping them to succeed? How is it helping with your customers? How is it making their experience working with you better? And also, what does it mean for your company? What are the commercial success factors? What are you measuring to make sure that this implementation is delivering on its intended outcomes? So once you've got your requirements, the next thing is to figure out, well, what kind of CRM are you actually trying to buy? As I see it, there are 4 core categories of CRM. The first is a bolt-on. So this is like an ERP system or a finance system maybe that has CRM as an additional feature. And all it really is a cloud Rolodex to store contact information. So that's really, I guess, just it's a tack-on kind of feature. It's not anything you would really need to implement or put much thought into. The next factor is an out-of-the-box CRM. And these CRMs, for example, would be like Pipedrive for sales pipeline management or Zendesk for customer service, those kinds of tools. These can be really good for what they do, but they typically only solve one function within your business. And what they usually ask you to do is to conform your processes to the way that they're set up. So this isn't a platform for you to design and build your processes, it's more you working to the way the system works. Now the danger with these is that you can outgrow them really quickly, and it's really painful to rip out and put in new systems more than you have to. So you've got to be really clear that if that's all you need, you don't see that changing within the next couple of years, or else you're going to be putting something in just to then rip it out. The next is an interesting category. So this is industry design systems. So an example of this might be Fergus Trade Software, which is an all-in-one software platform for the trade sector, also based in New Zealand. Now, these solutions, again, they're great for what they do. They bring a lot of industry insights and knowledge, but they do ask you to really conform to the way that they're set up. They're not about you building scalable solutions and systems for your business. And the final category is full platform. And a full platform CRM is like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, those kinds of products. And these are just huge cloud platforms that really can design and automate and integrate almost any business function. So everything from sales or service, marketing, business intelligence, artificial intelligence, broad API and connectivity with middleware platforms. There's a huge amount they can do. And I guess the key thing is that if you were going to go out and buy a car, you kind of need to know what you're trying to buy before you hit the lot. You don't go and look at a people mover and then go and look at the latest sports car. The pricing on these is very different. The features are very different. So you really want to make sure that you are clear on what you're trying to buy before you go out there, because we see a lot of customers comparing a full platform to an out of the box, for example, and it's pretty confusing because the cost and the kind of functionality is just vastly different. So they serve different needs. So once you've decided what kind of CRM you're looking to buy, the next thing is, well, okay, what kind of CRM platform functionality do we actually need? What are we looking at? So first thing is features and licenses. And there is a huge amount of variation in terms of the kinds of licenses you buy, especially within full platform. They do vastly different things. So you want to make sure that you're only buying what you need in that first instance, and then you can add more later. So don't buy bells and whistles that you don't need. Just really make sure that the license mix you have serves that first project's needs. The second thing is flexibility. How easy is it for you to customize this system? Do you have to use it as it is, or can you build your own reports, integrations, processes? What is the level of flexibility that this system provides? Thirdly is user experience. Now, if you think about it, user experience in a CRM point of view is not just a slick user interface. There is everything from how fast does it load, how many clicks does it take you to do what you want to do, how good is it from taking manual tasks away from your team to make them enjoy using it more. So it's really about not just the look and feel of the system, it's a whole lot more than that. The next thing is ease of integration. So how easy is it to connect your other systems to this tool? And what we would strongly advise is that if you're putting in isolated systems that don't talk is probably the quickest way that we've seen to slow down your growth. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose, it's got to be able to connect to your other core systems, because if it's not, again, it's something that you'll need to probably rip out later, which slows things down and it's super painful to do. You also want to look at system upgrades. So any CRM platform worth its weight in gold is going to be investing and constantly innovating on the platform. So if they're not releasing regular updates of new features and functionalities that are included with your licenses, then you probably not back the right horse. Again, a great CRM now is probably a terrible CRM in 10 years, right? So you want to make sure that technology goes pretty quick. So you want to make sure that what you're buying is really something that's getting constantly innovated and invested in. Ease of administration, so how easy is it for one of your teams to become that key system admin to update and make basic changes to the system? The community, this is really important. Now, if you see a CRM platform that has user groups, if it has local events, if it has online communities with people sharing ideas and insights on how to get more out of the platform, that's the best sign of a leading CRM platform. So it's really important that you feel like there's a community of users there that you can be a part of and that you can learn from as well. Does it support your long-term roadmap or just your first phase needs? Again, really important. You need to make sure it can go further with you than just that first piece. And also local customer references. If your CRM platform, if the vendor can't give you customers to attest to the impact it's made in their business that are local, that are relevant to your business, look, they've probably vetted them first. But if they can't give you those people to talk to, I would keep looking. The other piece is what kind of CRM consulting partner do you need to work with? Now look, the thing with CRM consulting partners, they come in all kinds of shapes and sizes, but the goal of a great CRM consulting partner relationship is to complement the skill set of your internal team. Okay, so if we go top to bottom here, or bottom to top, sorry, the base there, smaller kind of package-based implementations that solve common sales and marketing problems. So like our deploy solution would be an example of that. These are really good for smaller companies, making sure that they've got some good wins out of the gate, but you're not going too far off down the customization path in that first instance. So, $5,000 to $20,000 might be a kind of typical investment for an implementation in that space. You then have a freelance consultant. And a freelance consultant is usually going to work in-house with you as part of your internal team as you implement. This can be a great option, but again, think about the skills required to get CRM right. So you need to have solution design and architecture, you need business analysis, you might need declarative system configuration, you need custom development potentially. There's the change management and the people management side of things, because again, you're asking people to show up one day and they're working one way. They show up the next day and they're working completely differently. So there's a whole lot there around the project management and change management side required as well. So if you go with a freelance consultant, you need to make sure you're comfortable that they fill in the gaps that your internal team doesn't have. Then in the mid-tier, you've got two kinds of practices usually. So one is a development shop, so more of a technical project specialist where you've got well-documented technical requirements and they're executing a solution, versus a consulting shop, which is more like LavaBox, where it's more about bringing them vision and business challenges and then them really bringing together the right mix of skills to solve those problems. So less about requirements and technical versus more about business process and user and customer experience kinds of projects. And then if you're a large enterprise in the room, there's also the enterprise end of town. So these are large, CRM projects spanning thousands of users, hundreds of thousands of end customers, and they call them the cavalry, and the price point reflects that. So what do you evaluate in a consulting partner? The first thing is, do they get it? So when you're sitting with them for the first time, does it feel like it almost feels like they've never really understood anything about your industry or how you work, and you're kind of explaining what you do and they're hearing it for the first time. So having that background domain knowledge and that kind of experience so that there's just that innate understanding of how you operate and what your market looks and feels like is a really great first step. You also need to check, are they certified, especially in full platform when you're using many different parts of a CRM platform, making sure that they have the certifications to actually work with the tools that you're going to be buying. Have they completed comparable projects? And again, this doesn't have to be within your industry, but for example, are you running a business-to-business help desk? Or are you working in an environment with a high volume of transactional sales with hundreds of leads coming through every day? So it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to have worked on projects in your industry, but that they need to have a similar use case, and experience working in the same way that you work. Also, who is assigned to your project? When you evaluate as a consulting partner, you'll get a sales guy like me coming in and saying how great it's all going to be. But the cultural fit that you have with the specific consultants that will be working on your project is just as important as the firm that they come from. So really making sure you have a level of comfort with the people you'll be working with day in and day out is critical. Now, the other thing is, what is their delivery process? There are many different ways of implementing CRM, and we'll certainly be taking you through what we would recommend. But you want to make sure that whatever way your consulting partner proposes to take you from where you are now to a system that's delivering for your organization, that you're comfortable that your project team can take that journey and really work alongside them to that process. The other thing is, when you roll the system out and when you need support after you go live, are they putting it in and that's it, or do they have the capacity and the structure in place to support you with ad hoc change requests or your further phase roadmap? And the other thing is, and this might sound trivial, but do you get on with them? At its best, CRM projects last not just for months, but your business really is constantly changing and evolving. So the relationship really should change and evolve as your business scales and takes that next step. So you want to make sure that if the idea of sitting down with these people in a year or 2 years' time just doesn't really appeal to you, you probably want to keep looking, because you want that long-term relationship who can really partner with you as you scale. So there's some actions here that you can take. If you're evaluating CRM today, I know that's about half the room. So in the guides that you've got here, all of the content that I've given you goes into far more depth and detail. So by all means, feel free to take these steps. And I think hopefully if you go through those, it'll help you make a good decision on your first CRM project. Now the second piece is, once you've decided on your CRM platform and you've decided on your consulting partner, you need to then make sure that you're designing the system to empower your team, making sure that the end users who are going to be kept at the heart of this system are really getting the outcomes that they need. So this is about how to implement the system firstly, and then secondly, how to engage and to train your team once the system's designed. Now, there are many ways that you can implement CRM, but the ethos that we take at LavaBox is that you need to make sure that you're designing a system that really gives them something that improves their lives from day one. So it can't be a bad first date. They can't log in and it just doesn't help them do their job, because it's really hard to re-engage them once you've sort of lost your team like that. So it has to help them from day one, but it also needs to be set up in such a way that it gives them the opportunity to provide feedback on the system and the way they're working, and then to see the system actually rapidly improve based on that feedback. And again, the idea with this is that you're not trying to figure out all your requirements up front and trying to get it perfect, but you're trying to get it, finding that line of making sure it's valuable to them, but you're not going too far and making assumptions that don't hold true, and making sure that their feedback is helping to shape the end product. So I'm going to talk you through LavaBox's process through scoping, through building, testing, releasing, and then Jade Beecroft, our Client Success Manager, is going to talk through the continuous improvement phase of the piece as well. And again, what I'm hoping to do here is just to give you some concepts and tips and best practices throughout your implementation that should apply regardless of what you choose to work with. So usually a project's going to begin in the design or the scoping phase. So the idea here is that we're trying to get a solution design that is probably 60% of where it's actually going to end up for the project. So we're not trying to figure it all out and get it perfect, but we're trying to get us off in the right direction so that we're making some strong progress and we're not having to kind of retrace our steps and come back and rebuild. So in those workshops, what you're typically covering is your customer journey and your business processes in detail, how each job role is going to function within the business. So having your consulting partner do ride-alongs or sitting with your team as they work can also be really valuable to help them understand that day-to-day environment they're operating in. You're also going to look at any workflow process automation. So a few core automated processes can really help your team to see the potential that this kind of technology has to improve their lives. So any low-hanging processes to be automated can be a great idea to put in. You want to work out your data model. So what objects, for example, leads, accounts, contacts, projects, whatever those core objects are, what data needs to be captured against them and at what stage in the process, because that's going to flow through to your reports and your dashboards. You want to talk through integrations or custom development requirements, and you also want to make sure that you've got your security permissions worked out so that each user can only see what they need and nothing they don't. A few tips for the scoping phase. So the first thing is you want to proceed with market caution when you're trying to automate any processes that are not market tested. So if you've got a brand new business unit or a brand new offering or a brand new team, you want to be careful that you're not going down the garden path. It can be quite easy to do. We actually made this mistake with 123 Online about 9 years ago. We moved into the online marketing space and we said, okay, we're going to bring data in from Google. We're going to generate these kind of reports for our customers. If the results are above this level, they're going to go down that track. If it's below that level, they go down this account management track. And we designed this technically great system. And then, of course, we brought it to market. We found the contract terms were wrong, the offering was wrong, the account management process was wrong. We needed different data from Google than we thought we did. The whole thing just fell apart. And so we had to retrace our steps, go back and re-engineer it. And it was a very, very expensive exercise. So what I'd say is, look, just by all means, design and automate processes and really go for it, but make sure that you're confident that you know what the process looks like in a real world commercial environment. You're not sort of theorizing about things that you've never really done before. If you're going into a new area, just set up the basics, get the data right, get the core kind of objects and just get it so the user can actually just go end to end and do their job, and then get more intricate and automate based on that live feedback that the market and your team are giving you. The next thing is, when you're designing processes, don't just replicate what you do now, make them better. So there's a best possible way that you could run your business off pieces of paper with tick sheets, and there's a best possible way that you could run your business when you're using something like CRM. So you want to make sure that you're not just giving your team the exact same thing they do now with a new tool to look at. You've got to give them some wins out of this process as well. Now, the other thing is, and this is critically important, I can't stress it enough, bring in subject matter experts throughout the project, especially at the scoping phase, to sense check the design. So if you don't have a sales rep on your team and you've just got the manager on that core project team, bring in one of your best reps to actually look at the scope and go, hey, does this actually make sense to you? Because I can guarantee you they will see things that the manager or the senior leadership team or your technical team just never even thought of. So you've really got to make sure that you're, again, well-rounded perspectives to get the best outcome. You also want to make sure that you're making it easy for users of all technical abilities to be able to understand that scope. So what we now do, and this wasn't the case even a couple of years ago, is we use a scoping document combined with a proof of concept Salesforce environment. And what this means is that you're setting up the basics in a proof of concept so you can see the screens, the objects, how it all kind of looks, and then you're documenting what you intend to build over the top of what's in there. So what that does is it means that a rep who's not that technical can still log in, see what they might be working with, see what you're intending to build and make sense of it, because otherwise you can kind of end up signing off the scope without fully understanding what you're actually signing off. And the last piece, again, well-rounded perspectives. Get your project team to review the documentation individually and then come together with feedback. Don't get in a room together, because you really want everyone independently thinking about it from their view of the world and then coming together to get that feedback right. So at that point, you want to iterate on that, make sure you're comfortable with it. So don't just sign it off, make sure you've really got it feeling pretty good. Maybe now it's not 60% right, maybe it's like 70%, so you're moving in the right direction. Then in the building phase, the really important thing is you want to make sure that you've got regular demos and playbacks from your consulting partner. So they're not talking to you for like a few months and going and building it, but that you've got a regular cadence, whether that's weekly or every couple of weeks, where they're showing you what they're building and they're getting feedback, and really, again, just making sure that they're not missing the mark, because it's really easy if you catch a wrong road early and you've got 100 meters to walk back. If you've got a few thousand miles to walk it back, it's going to be a lot tougher. So really catching that right is important. The other thing is you've got to make a decision as a team. Do you log in and test live as the system is being built, or do you do it all at the end in the testing phase? And the complexity of your system and your internal resource and how much time you have as a team also to put into this play a factor in that, but it's an important thing to consider. And also getting your data ready. So one thing I'd point out with your data, there are tools that can automate and dedupe a lot of your data. You could get a junior member of your team doing it, but try and get the data right before you import it into the CRM as best you can. Don't sort of bring junk and then go record by record trying to make changes. It's a lot easier if you do it in a CSV environment first. Once the build's done, you move into the testing phase. So in the testing phase, your partner should be quality checking the environment, so you're not just getting something that doesn't work. You've got to be able to actually work with and test what they've provided you. You should get a demo of the end-to-end process so you're actually testing correctly, potentially even using testing scenarios and scripts to get that right as well. User acceptance testing, again, getting your users then in, working through their end-to-end process, and then finally having another round of refinements before it goes to a wider release to your team. So again, now we're trying to get it more like it's like 60 or 70% to maybe more 80% right. So a few tips here for the testing phase. So the first thing is you want to get representation of every user role testing it. So if there's reps, managers, account managers, senior business leaders, get everyone who's got those core roles testing the system so that they're making sure from their point of view it's on point. Secondly, use video tutorials, get all in-app prompts to guide your users as they're actually testing to make sure they're using the system correctly. Another really important one, test for bugs, i.e. things that are not working, but also think about enhancements as well. Like you really want to make sure that you're using the testing phase to make it better and make another round of changes to the system before it goes live as well. You want to try and capture your feedback. This is what we've now started doing at LavaBox, is actually capturing the feedback of users on the Salesforce platform itself as users are using it, and we're in there managing that backlog of ideas, issues, enhancements live and making those changes, right? So making sure it's easy for your users to actually provide that feedback is really important. Don't sort of have it off in this other document. Make it simple to click, submit a bug, click, submit some updates, ideas, feedback, etc. Get your super users ready. Make sure they are well trained and ready to support the launch at this point as well. So you want to make sure that they're in a position to be able to support with training, that when your consulting partner's not there, they're that first port of call in the room to help your team. And you also want to make sure that you decide who is actually leading the rollout. So this is quite critical. Are you going to be engaging your team, training them, managing the iteration cycle, or are you leaning on your consulting partner for that? So again, the division of labor between who's going to be doing that is also really critical. And that flows into what that looks like. So in the releasing phase, this is the final piece where you've designed the system, it's ready to actually get in the hands of your users. And the thing I would point out, guys, is that the people have been working one way for a very long time. And now they're going to show up to work the next day and they're going to be asked to work in a different way. And often they've all been working in completely different ways. So this might be the first time you're actually asking them to work to a standardized process as well. So there's a very careful and delicate change management process that needs to happen at this stage, because you don't want to lose the hearts and minds of your users right as you're going to take lift off with this thing. So we typically would recommend that you run this kind of workshop structure for every different user profile using the system, right? So if your managers don't get their own training and their own tailored version of this, they're not going to be able to lead from the top and be advocates for the system. So you want to make sure that everybody's got a tailored training. So a sales rep, a service rep, sales manager, project manager, whatever those roles are, you want to make sure that they're all getting their own tailored version of this. So typically we get the product owner up there in the morning of the session to really advocate for the system. So why they've chosen to actually implement CRM, and also to take them on the journey of all the thought and effort and care they put into really designing the system to help them in their day-to-day role and to help them succeed. You also want to look at communicating to your team the key value to them and how this tool is going to help them to be more successful in their roles, the value it's going to deliver for the organization, and also the value it's going to deliver for the end customers that they're serving and interacting with every day. So really framing the benefits in those three ways is a great way of engaging your team. You then want to make sure that there's a really slick demo to get the users excited so they can actually see the end-to-end process they'll be working to. And then some questions and answers and some collaboration can be really great as well. And then finally in the afternoon, you then want to get your users into small groups and you want to get them really able to support each other, the super users floating around, drip feeding that process piece by piece to make sure it's stuck in everybody's minds and they get it. And really the goal is that you're creating an environment where people are learning together, they're supporting each other, and they're really starting to get excited about this new way they're going to be working. And then that's it. The next day they come back to work and they are doing something different than they were the day before, and you're off and running. So this is a really important piece of the project. And for this continuous improvement piece, I'm now going to invite Jade Beecroft up, who's going to take you through the final piece of the puzzle.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, I am Jade, and I'm part of the continuous improvement team that we've got at LavaBox. And what I'm going to talk you through is some of the methodologies that we've been using in-house with our clients so that they can maximize the most of their CRM platform post-deployment. So what we're going to cover today is what is continuous improvement and why is it so important, and then how do you actually commit to continuous improvement. So what is continuous improvement and why is it so important? So if you think about your business 2 years ago or even 5 years ago, are the products and the services that you're offering today the same? Is the internal structure and the culture that you work the same? Are the competitors who you're competing with the same? And what about your customers? Are your customers exactly the same, or do they have different expectations? Do they want faster, better, or even cheaper solutions? Your business is constantly changing, and a continuous improvement process enables you to adapt quickly by translating your end user and customer feedback into your system enhancements, And it also helps by taking your evolving business strategies and making sure these are also fed into your CRM roadmap. So, how do we commit to continuous improvement? We think there are 3 key areas that you need to focus on to make sure you have a good continuous improvement process. The first one is actually creating a culture of continuous improvement within the business. So this is covering the budget, making sure you've actually got some money set aside to be able to actually continuously improve. This is the resources and the skills that you need internally to keep that happening. The second one is implementing a repeatable monthly iteration cycle. So this is the process or the cadence that you're using to actually translate your end user feedback into enhancements and then getting them into the system. And then the last one, which is prioritizing your CRM roadmap or your backlog. This is ensuring that you're continuously changing business strategic initiatives are actually making it into a single roadmap for your entire CRM. So, a culture of continuous improvement. Setting expectations for a continuous improvement budget up front is critical. Your CRM isn't a set and forget. As Justin has mentioned, it should be a living, breathing reflection of the way that you are operating with your business. So when you are setting up or you're going to get started on putting in a CRM, make sure that you set the expectation up front that this is going to continue and change as fast as what your business and your customers are. In ensuring that your initial implementation actually delivers strong from day one. This builds internal sentiment with your teams and also your stakeholders for them to continue to want investing with you. Investing in upskilling and resourcing your internal team. Whether you're working alongside a partner such as us at LavaBox or whether you're doing it all in-house yourself, you are going to need some extra hands. Whether that is administering your system, whether that is helping to complete your testing, whether it's project management or whether it's actually having someone do the changes in the system for you. And making sure that those resources are actually available at the right times is just as important as having them at all. And then the last one is to encourage all of your users to have a voice. So whether it is your top management or whether it's your front-end users, they shouldn't be just thinking about how their role is being completed. They should be thinking about it and encouraged to think about it from a process and a customer perspective in terms of how it can be improved. So the second area we talk about is having a repeatable monthly iteration cycle in place. This is a really key piece to make sure that there's actually a cadence and a process in place to deliver. At LavaBox, we choose to use an agile methodology. Now, agile is basically it's developed for software development shops to be able to deliver components of technology quickly, as well as taking customer iteration feedback into play. So it starts with a backlog refinement, and it's arguably the most important step. This is a list of all of your different initiatives and activities and projects and all the different aspects that you might want to complete with your CRM. Through this process, they are reviewed, they're prioritised, they're pulled apart, they're solutioned, they're estimated, any roadblocks that you've got are identified, and you're also calling out if you need any additional resources to cover this particular area. At sprint planning, the team then make a commitment on what it is that they think they can achieve in their window of time for the sprint, and the confirmed stories that are taken in from there are what make up your sprint backlog. The sprint itself is actually where you are developing, testing, and reviewing all the various components that you've taken in as part of your sprint backlog, and this is typically completed in a sandbox testing environment to avoid any business disruption. It is finally finished off with a demonstration back to your product owner and or team and a retrospective. Any new enhancements or requirements that are identified are captured, and then these are fed back into your backlog to be actioned in a future sprint. And the retro allows us to actually have a look at how we're working together as a team. This ensures that not only is your CRM platform being continuously improved, but actually the team is also working on how they can improve as well. So, what is the benefit of Agile? So, hopefully this picture gives you a fairly clear picture, but your CRM is not a set and forget. And when you are doing an implementation, one of the key differences between Agile and some of the more traditional methods is that the feedback that comes from your various users is actually fed into the process. So you've probably all been involved or been near or had some involvement in some shape of an IT project that perhaps hasn't quite delivered what it should. You've had new new requirements that have come up along the way, which has probably pushed out a delay. Your end users and your customers have probably gotten slightly annoyed at that delay, and the time it went live, maybe the system didn't actually deliver what they were looking for, or some of it wasn't actually used once it got turned on. This often happens in a more traditional model. So the benefit of Agile is that it actually allows you to factor the insights from your end users into your process as you're delivering. So if you take the top left picture that we've got up there, which is the more traditional, you can see we've used a car in this example, and the smiley face represents ideally your customer. You can see in this particular example that the customer isn't actually happy until they actually have the full car. And at no point before they've got the car do they actually have something which is usable for them. Now with Agile, you can see that there might be slightly more phases, but actually with each phase, there is something that is usable for the customer. Granted, a skateboard and a car, probably two different things, but it is faster than using your feet. And at each stage through the Agile process, there is actually something the customer can use. That's really important. And the key to this one is that as the customer is using each of the various things that you've produced, in this case a scooter and a motorbike, etc., they're actually learning more about what they want and more about what it is that they want from the product. So you can see the car that is in the traditional model versus in the Agile model is quite different. And that's because as they've used the tool, they've gained more insights as to what it is they want and what they need, and the end result looks quite different. So you've got the basics in place, you've got a CRM system installed. Hopefully now you've got a little bit more around how you need to actually get a continuous improvement cycle in place. What's next? Well, as already touched on, some of the three key areas which you might want to look to add in, and this comes down to a lot with your own business strategic priorities, is integrated systems. So if you've got the basics in place, maybe it's now time to look at connecting up with your CRM tool, or a finance tool, or a business intelligence tool, for example. You can look at additional layers. So if you've got, again, the simple process in place, enough for people to get by, now is actually when you get your team in and go, okay, cool, where are the steps that are repeatable for you? Where are the areas that you can actually start to take time away from people? I don't know about you guys, but every salesperson that I've ever met never ever wants to enter anything in the system. So ideally, you want to make it as simple and easy for them. And then new horizons. Pretty much every CRM platform tool there is, you're probably only scratching the surface of what it can do. So look at what you've got for your existing licenses. Do you want to go down artificial intelligence? Do you want to connect in new tools? Do you want to bring in new teams? There's a huge amount there. Just remember that with all of these new ideas and initiatives, they all need to feed into a single roadmap. And so what that is your backlog. And your backlog is constantly reviewed and constantly prioritized. And the idea is that your backlog, which is weighted and ranked, is actually your CRM roadmap. So just to recap, your business doesn't stand still. Funnily enough, neither should your CRM. Once you've got your basics in place and you've got your initial implementation, you really do need to get the commitment to continuous improvement underway. And the three key areas that we know that you need to have is creating a culture of continuous improvement, implementing a repeatable monthly iteration cycle, and to reprioritize your CRM roadmap or backlog. With those three things in place, you should be in a fairly good stead to be able to continuously improve your CRM platform going forward. Thank you. I'll hand back to Justin for you guys now.
I threw Jade under the bus for that last week and she did a pretty good job. Good stuff, thank you. So just to wrap up before we invite our customer panel up to speak, I'd just like to wrap up with some final thoughts. In my view, the greatest competitive advantage that small and medium enterprise have over their larger competitors is the ability to compete and to win on customer experience. You know, your larger competitors, they have the buying power and the budget, but they also have their work cut out for them because they have to take a whole bunch of legacy systems and thousands of users along for the ride to implement anything of value. Whereas smaller organizations can adapt faster, they can translate that feedback from their users and customers more quickly, and they can really implement much more complex and powerful systems a whole lot quicker and cheaper than their larger competitors. So it's a really fantastic way for smaller organizations to scale up, win on customer experience. And the thing that I'd point out as well is that the most powerful thing with this is that if your business makes that investment and works on a single integrated customer-centric platform, and you're empowering your team and your customers to translate that feedback, as Jade mentioned, your business is changing priorities into a technology foundation that continues to grow and evolve and help you to take that next step and the one after. It's the most powerful way I know to rapidly scale a business and to do it with confidence without disappointing customers, without eroding your margins, without the wheels falling off. So again, I'll just come back to what I know to be true, and that is if you back the right CRM platform, you make a careful selection of the right technology and the right partner, if you design the system in a way that makes your team's lives better, and then finally, no matter what, you commit to continuous improvement, no matter what other priorities you have, no matter what other initiatives are going on, you continue to translate that feedback to run faster and faster and better. I'm not going to come up here, as I said, and say it's going to be quick or easy. It's unfortunately something that it's a never-ending process because your business is always changing and growing and evolving. But what I can tell you is that bit by bit, phase by phase, if you take this journey, it will make a meaningful and transformative impact to the way that you interact with your customers and the way that you scale your business. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it. Thank you.